Hello, everyone. My name's Andrew Karolyi. I'm tremendously pleased to contribute to the 2024 Center for Accounting Research and Education Conference and Accounting in a Sustainable World Quarterly, its house journal. It came into being nearly 2 years ago to enforce the rigor necessary for best practices in regulation, sustainability reporting, capital allocation, performance metrics. The talk I'm going to give here today is based on a March 2024 keynote address I gave at the ESG Spring Conference at McGill University's Des Hôtels Faculty of Management. It's co-hosted with their Sustainable Growth Initiative and McGill's CIBC Office of Sustainable Finance. Now, I do want to say that the views I'm sharing today ultimately reflect my own perspective on the issues, which I do believe is confronting everyone who's engaged in business education. And of course, I welcome your own thoughts on where I might have gone wrong or how I need my ideas refined. So there is a major challenge before business schools today. It's about how best to integrate sustainability into our school curricula and our co-curricular activities. As you can see from this graphic, it resembles an ongoing wrestling match between what I'd like to think are inertia and change. Change for organizations, as we know, is hard. Progress can often be slow. It is so at universities, and it's even so at business schools, where we frankly pride ourselves on agility. I think a lot about Newton's first law of motion that applies here. What is at rest remains at rest until acted upon by external forces. Rest, not sure, more like inertia. So now it's difficult to pinpoint the what, who, why, when, and how the inertia in business schools exists. So what I'm going to do is focus first on what I'm seeing are the forces for change. And there are many of those. And so today I'm going to offer some reflections on a new framework in business schools to help catalyze these forces of change to supersede the forces of resistance. And that's really the core thesis here. So we all know well that global socio and environmental challenges, including climate change, biodiversity loss, wealth inequality, geopolitical tensions and uncertainty, these are shaping the future, the present and the future of societies and businesses. Now, businesses know that they can be very positive forces for change during this environment, this situation, and such that they know that they need to tackle them head on. We also know that's not easy. Now, I have been in various situations, speeches and presentations. I often have referred to these as the wickedest of wicked problems, because the elements dealing with climate change, biodiversity loss, income inequality, they are so complex, so interconnected. And because in being so, it's impossible, near impossible to identify a single cause, let alone solution. Now, the actions of businesses, I believe, can no longer be effective when isolated from the dynamic, not easily controllable socio-ecological system in which all businesses are embedded. So, to my mind, collaborative and integrative approaches have to be the way forward. Now, there is a realization among businesses that pure competition has to yield somehow to this collaboration, this working together. So I actually believe this was the essence of the goal in launching the UN Global Compact, the UNGC, back in 2000 by then Secretary General Kofi Annan. What he was trying to do was activate all corporations around the world to address the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Now, 24 years on, 8,000 corporate signatories strong, it's mobilized a global movement of sustainability-inclined companies and stakeholders. And by the way, it also includes now in support the Business Roundtable, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, GFANZ, and honestly, so many others. Leading strategy scholars like Western University's Tima Bonsall and University of Cambridge's Jennifer Howard Granville, organizations and markets experts, they refer to this kind of thinking as systems thinking. They talk a lot about collaboration, not competition, as the best designed to tackle these wicked global challenges. Now, what about business schools? Well, we compete, as you all know, with great intensity. I am convinced it makes us better and stronger. Business school deans like me, and many of them, we are pivoting our missions to mirror the pivot in businesses toward developing future business leaders ready to tackle wicked global challenges. Like businesses, it requires more interdisciplinarity of thinking, but yet we build our compensation and research support, our faculty promotion and tenure systems within traditional disciplinary silos in our teaching and research. Accounting, finance, marketing, management, operations, and strategy. We know we need to bridge business disciplines within our schools. And we're coming more and more to the realization that we need to do so across colleges and universities as well, working with the natural, applied, and other social sciences. It is still the case that in many business schools, we're still quite entrenched in the ways of the past. And this may be holding us back. More on that later. Now, not all, again, but many of us. And I think this is really important because there may very well be a significant disruption in the landscape of business education that's coming. Now, I don't know exactly what's going to be the catalyst, what's the shock. It might be the result of a technology shock like generative AI, another socioeconomic fallout from a pandemic like COVID-19, or some new product or service rendering behavior change, like a new form of social media. So I think to equip future business leaders to meet tomorrow's global, social, and environmental challenges, business schools are going to need to, and they are, rethinking how they advance business and management research and teaching. Now, this change should not occur in isolation within any one single business school with the goal of outcompeting another. Instead, it should happen more collaboratively. Some people use the word co-opetition to reflect the commitment to interdisciplinarity and acknowledging that, frankly, our similarities dwarf any of our differences. Now, some schools will fare better than others in this period of disruption. And one wonders, what are the characteristics and attributes of the schools that are going to be able to be in better standing post-disruption? Of course, it's hard to say. And of course, I have my own thoughts on this. One attribute that I know is going to be important is a breadth of offerings. One force in this disruption is going to be the threat of substitute product offerings. Now, to mitigate this threat, one can diversify across product offerings. Think degree programs here, especially ones that can meet most effectively the demands of the marketplace today. So one idea is certainly that schools that are exclusively residential two-year MBA programs or any singly one type of pre-experienced specialized master's program or just an undergraduate program, they will be at risk relative to, I think, more comprehensive business schools, which also have robust and strong undergraduate business offerings, professional master's offerings, as well as MBA degree offerings, the full suite. The more successful schools may very well be those that have the larger portfolio of market-ready degree and non-degree product offerings. Second factor, I think, that's going to dictate success in this pivot or this disruption is the resources that business schools command. Clearly, those with stronger financial positions are going to be able to withstand adverse economic shocks better than others. And they'll be able to use those resources to meet the need for strategic investments in the kind of interdisciplinary systems thinking, research, and teaching innovation that we know the marketplace is expecting of us. A third attribute is what I call authenticity. I talked about the pivot earlier, the pivot in mission statements. Now, many business schools are now defining or redefining their mission, vision, and values around the importance of training future business leaders for a sustainable world and for positive societal impact. But some schools have come to these commitments recently, and some have a proven track record established across decades. I think those differences could matter if and when this disruption that I'm describing occurs. A fourth criterion, I think, is a global mindset. Business schools that integrate global context organically in their curricular offerings and in their research programs will have a competitive advantage. Now, this to me is much more than study exchanges and short-term career tracks, which are kind of table stakes. I'm thinking about deeper commitments to global, longer-term dual degree programs, and extended investments in research themes and collaborations with partners around the world. Fifth criteria or attribute is what I call industry engagement. Many business schools engage with their corporate partners through career management and placement centers for their students. That again is table stakes. The schools among us that will have a deeper form of engagement through sponsored research grants, roundtables, industry-facing conferences, faculty and student externships, centers and institutes and initiatives, the ones that make a deeper commitment to the industry engagement, I think they will be in a better position to ensure relevance and credibility in response to the grand challenges that are ahead. Now, all of this makes me think of, and I have no idea whether it does for you, the great Michael Porter's well-known 5 forces framework for examining an industry's competitive forces in decision-making. So for business schools, we can use this framework actually to evaluate our own and others' effectiveness in training impactful future business leaders. Now, again, you may or may not agree with me that the foundational disruption is imminent, like I'm suggesting. You may see, the fractured politics in Europe and North America and other parts around the world holding off some of the disruption that might be coming. You may or may not accept, by the way, the 5 forces model for business schools that I think might prove some resilience to this disruption that I outlined. You might not agree that any of this is exhaustive or correct. Fair enough. Regardless, I'm sure we can agree that there are some conditions in play for essential catalysts of change to spur business schools forward in integrating sustainability and societal relevance into their curricula and their research. So what are these valuable catalysts of change? Remember, that was the thesis at the top. First, I think, are the corporations. They are the ones that are seeking to employ our students. Remember, 8,000 signatories of the UNGC, 193 members of the Business Roundtable, 550 GFANs, member banks, insurers, asset owners, asset managers, and investment consultants representing, $130 trillion in assets under management. These employers, and now think Porter's buyer power, they expect the managers they hire out of business schools to have the skills and understanding of how environmental and social sustainability are embedded into the core of business strategy. There's this wonderful 2023 LinkedIn report featured at the World Economic Forum last year called Global Green Skills Report. I commend that to anyone. It found that only 1 in 8 workers around the world have at least one kind of green skill, while over the preceding year. LinkedIn job postings in this year of their analysis requiring at least one green skill has grown by a median of 15.2% year over year. And that level is nearly 30%, that rate of change is nearly 30% higher than the average change in workforce. So to me, this suggests we need to train our students to think more about their core responsibility to manage environmental and social risks as business risks, core business risks, core business opportunities that create competitive advantage, and toward developing innovative products and services while improving performance and delivering value, not only for their businesses, but the communities that they serve and for the natural environment affected by their work. So that's the first big catalyst of change. Second one is the students. Our students want this. Think Porter's supplier power here. Perhaps more than any other generation, Gen Z is fueled by a sense of purpose. They have experienced global pandemics, economic recessions, political fractionalism like we haven't seen in many decades. EY created a report on Gen Z, which is quite eye-opening. They suggest Gen Z seem to view the world very differently with an acute focus on solving societal problems. The author is Merriman, 2022, Ernst & Young. Now, our MBA and professional graduate students, as well as our undergraduates, are putting ever increasingly more pressure on business school leadership and advocating for change more vocally in larger numbers than surely I can remember in my 35 years being in business schools. I think our students may be the ones to inject purpose, mission, and values into the foundations of the corporations that need them. Now, I've already mentioned the importance of systems thinking for business schools. So there are, in fact, other kinds of organizations in this ecosystem of business schools that are serving as important catalysts of positive change. By guiding, again, forgive me for using Porter's concepts here, a threat of new entrants, defining a threat of substitution, and that define competitive rivals, the other three of Porter's 5 competitive forces. For example, accreditation bodies. They've all adopted new guiding principles that serve as a higher calling to the purpose of business schools to make a difference in the world through positive social impact. AACSB, the Association to Advance Collegiate Schools of Business, the European Foundation for Management Development, EFMD Global, the Association of MBAs. Understanding how effective the change has been is still in its early days, but they're making the push. Here's another one, networks. There are now new networks, like, for example, the Network for Business Sustainability, a non-for-profit, facilitating a community of 190 plus sustainability research centers in business schools worldwide. In my own college, Cornell S.C. Johnson College of Business, dozens of others were members. The United Nations Higher Education Sustainability Initiatives, HESI, it's part of its Department of Economic and Social Affairs. They convene similarly. No single business school or business school center, well-resourced as it might be, can do as much as a consortium can. Here's another one. Professional associations. So in 2007, the United Nations Global Compact, UNGC, its Leaders Summit launched something called the Principles for Responsible Management Education Prime to create a global movement to drive thought leadership on responsible management education. Today, 840 plus signatory schools across 90 countries, select faculty, student groups, gathered in regional chapters, working groups, national global forums, working with corporate partners. They're all with the idea of the goal is to advance the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, in business education. I happen to be Global Vice Chair of Prime's Advisory Board, and I'm proud of this work. Another example is something called the Responsible Research in Business and Management, RRBM. It's a grassroots organization founded in 2015 about to celebrate its 10th anniversary and includes now 1,900 individual faculty members as signatories, again, across 90 plus countries. RRBM's goal is to inspire, encourage, and support credible and valuable research in business and management disciplines, to focus on service to society, valuing multidisciplinary collaboration towards impact on stakeholders. RRBM, and I happen to be the global chair of this organization, works closely with ACSB, EFMD, Prime, as well as other organizations like the Aspen Institute's Business and Society program. Another one, media awards and rankings. Well, if there's one thing business school deans understand, it's rankings, the good, the bad, and the ugly of them. For the record, I've only experienced a world of business schools with rankings and believe that they are important, positive contributors to business education and their leaders. I understand not everyone agrees with me. Rankings agencies like Bloomberg Businessweek, the Financial Times, they've now incorporated how well schools integrate environmental and social themes into their core courses. In the past 3 years, the FT has sponsored its Responsible Business Education Awards to identify and highlight best practices in teaching and research in corporate sustainability. Here's another one. University initiatives. So outside business schools, but inside universities. Once isolated on campuses, business schools now understand better than ever that their best way to address the wickedest of wicked grand challenges is to partner with university-funded initiatives linked, for example, to climate change, biodiversity loss, wealth inequality. At Cornell, example, Cornell's S.C. Johnson College of Business, over 50 of our nearly 250 faculty members are fellows of our multi-college, university-wide Cornell Atkinson Center for Sustainability. Together with other faculty in the natural sciences, agriculture and life sciences, engineering, human ecology, architecture, urban planning. These partnerships are positive forces for change from within. And I should mention, there's this ephemeral concept of technology out there. You know, there are new generative AI tools that are coming forward to help evaluate how well, for example, scholarly journals and individual articles by business school faculty provide content that aligns with the SDGs. Some shout out to some work at St. Joseph's University's Hobbs School of Business, working together with Cabels, has developed a large language model affectionately referred to as Chat SDG that provides a framework and metrics for measuring the impact of research on each of these 17 Sustainable Development Goals. LLMs can evaluate the contributions of management journals among the articles they publish. AI can be used at the school level to determine how much of its faculty publishes articles that align with the SDGs. Technology can be an important positive catalyst for change. So where is the inertia that I was talking about? Can it be overcome? With the impetus for change, arguably disruption in the wings, waiting in the wings, within the business school landscape, and the many external catalysts that we just mentioned, provisioning for change, you have to ask, where is the inertia that is impeding the change? Now, it's so tempting to suggest that faculty, especially the more senior tenured faculty, while they govern, as they rightly should, business school policies, programs, and curricula, there may be, by the way in which we've constructed our business school governance structures, there may be some elements of resistance to change in higher education and certainly in business. Encouraging faculty to align with these goals that I mentioned above can be a significant challenge when integrating responsible business practices like sustainability into the core curriculum. Now, one person that has really framed this quite well is Brian Rosenberg. He's the former president of Macalester College in a 2023 book, which I commend to anybody listening. It's entitled, "Whatever It Is, I'm Against It, Resistance to Change in Higher Education." It's Harvard Education Press 2023. The title is a wink to a song Groucho Marx, on the right there, sings in a 1932 movie called Horse Feathers, in which he plays Professor Quincy Adams Wagstaff. And he's answering the call from a college trustee seeking to suggest ways to innovate and invariably replying, whatever it is, I'm against it. Rosenberg outlines in his book, which is a wonderful treatise, sources of resistance to change, and he lists them off. Preservation of reputation by university and colleges as long-lived institutions. It's understandable. The competing incentives of faculty, staff, presidents, university boards of trustees. The weighty anchor of academic disciplines. And the importance of shared governance and tenure. I encourage you to go read that book. It certainly influenced my thinking. Now, I don't agree with everything in Rosenberg's analysis, but the book is most effective, I think, in its discussion about shared governance, one of his chapters, which deconstructs the concept of faculty as one of the behemoths into subcategories. Now, he actually deconstructs faculty into groups. He talks about tenured and tenure track, but pre-tenure. He talks a lot about non-tenure track teaching and research faculty, and he makes these distinctions. The framing, I think, offers signs of hope for change coming towards integrating sustainability into business school curricula. And it's, in my mind, all about engaged faculty. Because we do see engaged faculty in business schools who are actively involved. And it happens to be particularly those who are, for example, affiliated with a center on sustainability. Those who are fellows of a university-wide initiative on sustainability. Those who have, for example, signed on to a global association like PRIME or RRBM. Many of these faculty in business schools around the world, large or small in numbers as they are, have been recognized with awards by associations specializing in support of business education. Includes People and Planet, along with Profit. Often these faculty members are non-tenure track teaching and research faculty affiliated with those centers and institutes, typically funded by external contracts, grants, corporate sponsorships. And in my mind, they're the ones that are hearing and responding to the strong voices of the students and the corporations. These are entities that anchor their CNIs in the current needs for upskilling for those corporate sponsors. And these faculty members, I believe, can provide a deeper level of engagement with industry than perhaps some of our tenured and or those on the tenure track. They're much more inclined towards translational or applied research, and certainly interdisciplinary research is more complicated and complex with mixed incentives among disciplinary, specialized, tenured, and tenure track faculty. It can be much more welcomed by non-tenure track teaching and research faculty. Now, again, their numbers are still small in many business schools around the country, but they are growing in influence. Now, here's some final thoughts. There will be winners and losers among top business schools in meeting the interdisciplinary systems thinking challenge, whether it's catalyzed by a disruption or not. I'm convinced that overcoming the challenge of integrating sustainability into business school curricula starts with providing the right resources and incentives. More carrots, fewer sticks. A well-resourced business school with a global mindset, an authentic mission dedicated to solving global environmental social problems, enabled by a broad portfolio of program offerings that are market ready, and especially those schools with deep industry engagement, in my mind, are likely to be better able to provide those resources and incentives. Those of us fortunate to serve in leadership in such business schools, I think we must accept responsibility to affect the kind of change in systems thinking, to address what I like to call these wickedest of wicked social problems. We do, and we will. And thank you so much for listening. Oh, and by the way, in your calendars, reserve Responsible Management Education Week, co-hosted by the Prime Global Forum and RRBM's Responsible Research Summit, June 9th to 13th, 2025 in New York City. More information to come. Thank you.